The greatest fortunes in history were not made in bull markets. They were forged in the depths of a crisis. A period of massive wealth redistribution is coming, and it will create a new generation of millionaires from the ashes of the old economy. The question is, are you prepared to be on the right side of it? There's a saying taught in America's most elite business schools, a lesson that has shaped the world's top financial minds. In their curriculum, a sentence is written very clearly. In the last 100 years, the easiest period to make money, even with your eyes closed, was in 1932. Why then? Because from 1929 to 9, the United States was in the suffocating grip of the Great Depression. To put it bluntly, when even lawyers and doctors had to beg on the streets, that was precisely the moment to make an unprecedented amount of money. The core principle is this: when everyone has no money, when fear is at its peak and assets are dirt cheap, that is the time we can become rich. This is a process of massive wealth redistribution. And once this kind of opportunity is seized, class and wealth can be consolidated for generations. This is also why they say wealth rarely lasts for 3 generations, because it is in these moments of crisis that old fortunes are lost and new ones are made. We have waited for nearly 100 years, and it appears this opportunity has finally arrived again. But first, we must understand the difference between a financial crisis and a deeper economic crisis, because they are not the same thing. Wealth Topmax warmly welcomes you. This channel is dedicated to sharing wealth-building mindsets for those seeking financial and time freedom. If you don't want to miss out on future valuable insights, consider subscribing for free and turning on the notification bell. Financial crisis occurs when the financial system, which operates on the principle of leverage, collapses. Governments borrow, businesses borrow, and people borrow. But if one day these borrowers cannot repay their debts, banks run out of cash, and a panic ensues. Assets evaporate, companies go bankrupt, and unemployment soars. A financial crisis is terrifying, but it is still fundamentally a monetary issue. It can eventually be solved by the government and central banks printing money and pumping it into the system. For this reason, a financial crisis usually only lasts for about 1 to 2 years. But a true economic crisis is different. It happens when there is systemic overproduction and a collapse in consumption. Goods can't be sold, factories shut down, and the real economy grinds to a halt. This is what happened during the Great Depression. The invention of the assembly line led to a massive increase in productivity. Goods were produced faster and cheaper than ever before. But when the market became saturated and people who had jobs already had what they needed, the factories couldn't sell their inventory. They collapsed like a domino effect, leading to mass unemployment. This is a much deeper problem that can't be solved just by printing money. So, do you notice this pattern repeating in our current era? In many countries, we are seeing sharp adjustments in house prices. The car market is the same. Luxury brands are continuously cutting prices while the used car market stagnates. Meanwhile, people are rushing to buy safe haven assets like gold and silver. They have money, but they are choosing to hold it, not spend it, because of uncertainty about the future. While we all think a recession won't come, what are the world's top billionaires secretly doing? They are hoarding food, buying up massive tracts of land, and preparing for the coming turmoil by holding 5 of the most important types of assets. Because only when they have possessed these specific assets can they weather the storm and then use their preserved capital to buy everything back at the cheapest possible price during the crisis, allowing them to expand their wealth exponentially. So, what are these 5 new types of assets that the wealthy are accumulating? The most important thing is that we must first learn to protect ourselves before we can think about getting rich. The first and perhaps most important asset the ultra-wealthy are buying is land. Let's look at what visionaries like Bill Gates have been doing, over the past few years. He has quietly acquired a huge amount of land, mostly prime agricultural land, with a total area of up to 260,000 acres. To help you visualize this number, that is an area equivalent to 10 times the size of Paris, or twice the size of New York City combined. Amazon's Jeff Bezos is not far behind, buying up 420,000 acres of land, while U.S. media mogul Ted Turner owns up to a staggering 2 million acres. Even Mark Zuckerberg, instead of pouring all his money into metaverse research, spent $2 billion to build a massive, self-sufficient structure in Hawaii that has been dubbed a doomsday fortress. Even the company behind ChatGPT is following this trend. After making their first huge profit, one of the first things they did was not to continue pouring all their money into AI research, but to buy a large farm. Why are these tech tycoons, the very people who built their fortunes in the digital world, suddenly rushing to hoard the most ancient and tangible asset of all, land? Are they all secretly planning to raise pigs? We don't need to discuss conspiracy theories. Just looking at the actual data is enough. Every single time the U.S. stock market has collapsed, like during the 2008 financial crisis, when U.S. stocks lost nearly 50% of their value, the U.S. agricultural land price index soared by 17%. Agricultural land is the ultimate hard asset. It can be rented out for income. It can be sold. And most importantly, it can be cultivated. In terms of profit over the last 20 years, agricultural land in the U.S. has been no less profitable than the stock market. And in terms of volatility, it is much, much more stable. That is why many savvy entrepreneurs I know have been quietly going to the U.S. to buy land. Which brings us to the second closely related asset: food and the means of production. The greatest and most fundamental use of agricultural land is to produce food. You might wonder, in our modern, technologically advanced society, will there still be the risk of famine? Even beggars don't starve to death. But you must understand, when a severe economic recession occurs, especially when coupled with the impact of war and supply chain disruptions, the single most expensive and valuable commodity is always food. Looking at the current world situation, geopolitical conflicts have been ongoing for some time, and many countries have been drawn in. It is for this very reason that the U.S. financial oligarchs are rushing to hoard not just land, but the means of food production on a massive scale. They understand that in a real crisis, the person who controls the food supply controls everything. Owning the land that grows the food is the ultimate position of power in a world of uncertainty. It is a direct investment in the most basic human need, a need that will never go away, no matter how bad the economy gets. The third type of asset that many countries and wealthy individuals around the world are actively buying is gold and silver. These are the assets that I personally always prioritize holding. Every time I make a significant profit in dollars from the stock market, I always set aside a portion of that profit to convert into physical gold or silver. The reason for this is very simple. If the US dollar or the entire global financial system were to collapse, the paper money and digital numbers we are all holding in our bank accounts would become worthless. At that time, the world would inevitably revert to the only type of currency that has maintained its value for over 5,000 years, the currency created by God, which is gold and silver. As long as I have gold, I can exchange it for any currency in the world, but not every currency in the world can be exchanged for gold, especially during a crisis. Over the past hundreds of years, countless fiat currencies have appeared and then disappeared, collapsing into dust. Only gold has survived. Even if humanity goes extinct, gold will still remain in this world, untarnished. If you are like me and you want to protect your assets from a systemic collapse, Or if you want to have enough real resources to take advantage of buying up cheap assets during a Great Depression, then gold is definitely the most worthwhile asset to buy. Anyone can buy it. And when I have bought gold, I have no intention of selling it for fiat currency, unless it is to exchange it for another, even more valuable tangible asset. The fourth type of asset that I choose, and one that is gaining increasing acceptance, is the people's currency, which is Bitcoin. Over the past year, massive institutional players like BlackRock and Fidelity, as well as politicians and even presidents, have been quietly buying Bitcoin every single day without you noticing. What do they know that we don't? At this point, many people ask me, is there anything worth investing in recently? Are there any opportunities to make money? If I were to just give you a stock tip, I would actually be harming you. Why? Look at the legendary investor Warren Buffett. Every year, he publicly discloses the portfolio of stocks he has bought. So you should just be able to follow him and get rich, right? But what is the reality? When Buffett announces he likes Apple's stock, right after that, Apple's stock price immediately soars. You see that and jump in to buy, but the very next day the price falls and you suffer a loss. So, did Buffett trick you? Should you sell to cut your losses? If you sell, the price often goes up again. The problem is not with the asset. The problem is that you have absolutely no complete trading or investing system. You don't know when to buy, when to sell, how much to buy, or how much to sell. In the end, you still lose, and you might even lose faith because you don't understand what you're doing. In the past, Bitcoin was to me the same as stocks or futures, just a speculative tool. But recently, I have considered holding Bitcoin as a long-term asset. Not because I believe Bitcoin will necessarily continue to rise sharply in the short term, but because I think that one day, when a true economic crisis occurs, Bitcoin could become a primary safe haven asset, perhaps even more valuable than gold and silver in certain situations. Why? Because it is the people's currency, decentralized, borderless, and outside the control of any single government or central bank. Many people still think Bitcoin is just a scam with no real value. The problem is, if this is really a scam, it has existed from 2008 until now, for more than a decade. And its value is still continuously increasing. If over the past 10 years you were scammed by Bitcoin, meaning you bought it and held it, you might have become a millionaire by now. But if during that same time you weren't scammed and you just held the great US dollar, you would have seen that your purchasing power has been seriously depreciated by inflation. As for the final type of asset, I temporarily call it an asset because it has the ability to protect and preserve life, but perhaps only in the US is it legal to own, and that is guns and the tools for self-reliance. If you have ever been to certain parts of the US recently, you might see a group of people casually taking goods from a convenience store and putting them in their bags. Then they slowly walk to the counter, smile, and immediately run away. This form of $0 shopping has, in some jurisdictions, been almost legalized. As long as the value of the stolen goods is less than a certain threshold, like $950, at most it will only be considered a misdemeanor. When the economy is in a severe recession, this situation will certainly become even more serious. So if you live in the US, owning a firearm for self-defense might be a necessary consideration. In the past, I was also very opposed to this idea, thinking that guns are only tools of crime. But after rethinking, I realized that if someone wants to harm others, they can use anything as a weapon. But if you need to protect yourself and your family in situations where the power disparity is too great, perhaps only a firearm can give you a chance to defend yourself. This is not about aggression. It is about self-reliance and the ability to protect your other assets when the systems we rely on break down. In conclusion, If we want to protect our assets and even thrive during a potential Great Depression, we must prepare these 5 types of assets in advance. To recap, they are land, especially agricultural land, as the ultimate tangible asset. Food and the means of production, because in a crisis, food is the ultimate currency. Gold and silver, the timeless safe havens against currency collapse. Bitcoin, the emerging digital gold and the people's currency. And finally, tools for self-reliance and security, to protect what is yours when no one else will. Only when we have secured these foundational assets will our money and our families be protected from being invisibly eroded by the coming turmoil. When a recession really happens, these assets are positioned to hold their value or even appreciate strongly, helping us have enough financial strength to buy back the core productive assets of our economy when they are being sold off at rock-bottom prices. This is the playbook of the wealthy, and now you understand it too. Thank you for joining us here at Wealth Topmax. We hope this has given you a valuable framework for navigating the uncertain times ahead. Don't forget to subscribe for notifications, and we will see you in the next video.